You ever do something so unforgivable that it keeps you awake years later? I did. I slept with my best friend's wife the night before his wedding. He trusted me to be his best man, to stand beside him while he said I do, and I stood there pretending nothing happened. Now she's pregnant, and every time I see them smile, the same question burns in my chest. Is that baby his or mine? This is the secret that ruined everything. The story of how one night of weakness became a lifetime of regret. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to be perfect. White and gold decor, laughter bouncing off the walls, and my best friend James glowing like a man who finally had everything he'd ever wanted. His fiancée, Sophie, looked stunning. Every move graceful, every smile bright enough to make the whole room forget it was late. I kept telling myself to stay in my lane. I was the best man, not the center of attention. But somewhere between the champagne and the music, the lines started to blur. After midnight, the guests began to leave. Sophie stepped out to the terrace for air, the city lights painting her face in soft gold. She caught my eye and smiled. That kind of smile that says, "Follow me," without saying a word. I told myself it was harmless. Just a few minutes of small talk between friends. We talked about the wedding, about James, about how surreal everything felt. She laughed, a nervous, tired laugh. And when her hand brushed my arm, something in me broke loose. I should have walked away. Instead, I reached for another drink, then another. One thing led to another, and before I understood what was happening, we were in her hotel room. The sound of her heartbeat drowned out the world. It wasn't passion, it was confusion dressed as comfort. And the second it was over, reality came crashing in. James was asleep in the next wing, dreaming about forever, while I was sitting on the edge of a bed beside his bride. I remember whispering, "What did we just do?" But morning always comes, and it doesn't care about regrets. The sun has a cruel sense of humor. It always shows up right when you wish it wouldn't. I woke with a pounding head, the room spinning, and Sophie's hair spread across the pillow beside me. For a few seconds, I forgot where I was. Then the smell of her perfume hit me, and everything came back in a rush. My best friend's fiancé, the wedding, the impossible line I had crossed. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. James's name flashed on the screen. I froze. Sophie groaned softly, then whispered, "Don't look at me like that." But how else could I look at her? Like the woman who just destroyed her wedding? Or like the reminder of what I'd done to my best friend? I stumbled into my clothes, my heart slamming against my ribs. She sat up, pulling the blanket around her, eyes glassy. "This never happened," she said. My voice was barely a whisper. Right. By the time I reached the lobby, James was already there, smiling like the world had never been more perfect. "Rough night," he laughed. "Man, you look like you drank half the bar." I forced a grin. "Something like that." He clapped my back. "Couldn't do this wedding without you, brother." And right there, in the middle of that bright hotel lobby, my stomach turned. Because I'd already betrayed him in the worst way possible, and he had no idea. The church smelled like roses and promises. Sunlight poured through stained glass, painting colors across the aisle. James stood next to me at the altar, his hands shaking, eyes shining. "This is it, man," he whispered. "Wish me luck." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because if I didn't, I might break. When the doors opened, Sophie appeared. She looked radiant, the kind of beauty that silences a room. People gasped, phones clicked, music swelled. And me, I couldn't breathe. She walked toward James with a calm I couldn't understand. Not a flicker of guilt crossed her face. She didn't look at me once, and thank God she didn't. I kept telling myself, just get through it, smile, pretend. Then came the vows. James's voice trembled as he said, "I choose you, Sophie, today and every day for the rest of my life." And she smiled, the same smile she gave me the night before. When the priest asked for the rings, my hands shook as I passed them over. For one terrifying second, our fingers brushed. That touch felt like lightning, guilt, fear, memory, everything at once. They kissed, applause thundered, cameras flashed, and I stood there, my grin carved out of stone, praying no one saw the truth burning behind my eyes. Because the moment James kissed his wife, the woman I had already kissed, I realized something awful. The wedding wasn't the beginning of their story. It was the beginning of my punishment. If the ceremony was sacred, the reception was chaos, dressed in lights. Music boomed, glasses clinked, laughter echoed off crystal walls. James was everywhere, hugging relatives, dancing with Sophie, thanking guests. He looked happy, genuinely happy. I lingered near the bar, nursing a drink I couldn't finish. Every time Sophie's eyes found mine, I looked away, pretending to text, pretending to breathe. Then came my nightmare, the best man speech. James grinned, handing me the mic. "Say something nice, Adrian." Everyone turned toward me, waiting. I forced a smile. "James has been my best friend since we were kids. Loyal, stubborn, the kind of man you trust with your life. And Sophie," I hesitated, throat tight. "She's the woman who makes him better." A few people laughed softly. Glasses clinked. The room blurred. When I sat down, Sophie's gaze brushed mine, a silent reminder of what lay between us. Later, I stepped outside for air. The night was cool, quiet. Sophie was already there, shoes in her hands, staring into the dark. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence was thick with everything we couldn't say. And standing there, I understood something simple and cruel. We'd both just buried our guilt under the sound of wedding bells. The newlyweds were set to fly out for their honeymoon at dawn. I should have felt relieved. Space, distance, time to breathe. Instead, I spent the night tossing in bed, replaying every moment in my head like a film I couldn't stop watching. Just after midnight, my phone buzzed. A message from Sophie. "We need to talk." Every instinct screamed no, but guilt is a strange magnet. It pulls you toward the very thing you should run from. She opened her hotel door, still wearing the wedding dress. The veil was gone, her eyes swollen from crying. "I just needed to see you," she whispered. My heart pounded. "Sophie, this has to stop. James can never know." She nodded, tears streaking her makeup. "He won't, but can you really live with it? Can you look at him every day and pretend nothing happened?" I didn't answer, because she already knew. When I left her room, I turned back once. She was standing there barefoot in that ruined dress, looking like a ghost of the woman James thought he married. That was the night I realized this secret wasn't going to fade. It was going to follow me, through their honeymoon, through their marriage, through every single smile that wasn't mine. The next morning, I drove James and Sophie to the airport. The sun was barely up, the city still half asleep. James was buzzing, grinning from ear to ear, talking about beaches, sunsets, and the first chapter of forever. He hugged me tight before heading in. "You're the best, man. Couldn't have done this wedding without you." I almost laughed. "If only you knew." Sophie avoided my eyes as she took her luggage. She whispered a quiet, "Thank you," but there was no warmth in it, just the weight of everything we'd buried. Watching them walk away felt like watching my sins board a plane. I thought maybe distance would make it easier, that once they were gone, the guilt would fade, but it didn't. It stayed. It grew. The first few nights, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hotel room, her hand on my arm, the sound of James's laughter echoing in the back of my head. My best friend was on his honeymoon, and I was stuck in minefield memories I couldn't escape. People talk about betrayal like it's a single moment, one act, one mistake. But the truth, it's not. It's a living thing. It grows inside you, feeds on silence, and whispers every time you try to move on. 2 weeks later, James and Sophie came back glowing. At the welcome back dinner, everyone toasted to their beautiful future. Laughter filled the air, and I played along, the supportive best friend who'd do anything for them. But every time James leaned in to kiss his wife, guilt crawled up my throat. She avoided my eyes all night, didn't sit near me, didn't say much, but that silence between us, it was deafening. At one point when James went to grab drinks, Sophie leaned close enough for me to feel her breath. "We need to talk," she whispered. I froze. "Not here. Tomorrow. Don't ignore me." Her voice was soft but sharp, like she was holding a blade behind it. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The walls felt smaller. The air felt heavy. I thought about confessing everything, ending the lie before it spread any further. But then I pictured James's face, the guy who defended me in every fight, shared every dream, trusted me with his wedding. How could I destroy him with the truth? So I did what cowards do best. I stayed quiet. We met at a quiet cafe the next morning. Sophie sat across from me, sunglasses hiding her eyes, hands shaking around a coffee she never drank. Before I could say anything, she said it. 3 words that ripped through the noise of the cafe and straight into my chest. "I'm late, Adrian." I blinked. "What?" "I'm late," she repeated, voice cracking. 6 weeks. My heart dropped. 6 weeks. That was right around the wedding, around that night. "You don't know," I started. "I don't know whose it is," she cut in. "And that's the problem." I stared at her, waiting for her to say it was a joke, but her face told me it wasn't. The words felt heavy in the air. Pregnant, best friend, betrayal. I whispered, "You can't tell James." She looked at me, tears filling her eyes. "I know, but how do I carry this knowing it might be yours?" I didn't have an answer, because the truth was, I didn't want to know either. That morning, I walked out of that cafe feeling like my life had split in two. Before the mistake, and after it. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't a secret anymore. It was a countdown. That night, James called me, voice bursting with excitement. "She told me, man. We're having a baby. I'm gonna be a dad." My world tilted. "Wow, that's, amazing," I said, gripping the phone so tight my knuckles turned white. He laughed, pure and proud. "You'll be Uncle Adrian, right? You're family. You've always been family." The word cut deeper than a knife. "I wouldn't miss it," I managed to say, my throat closing around every word. But James heard something. He paused. "You okay? You sound weird." I forced a laugh. "Just tired," he chuckled. "Get some sleep. Big changes coming." When the call ended, I sat in silence. He was building a future around a lie. Around me. And as much as I wanted to convince myself that the baby was his, deep down, I couldn't stop wondering. What if it wasn't? Victor, James's cousin, had always been sharp, the kind of guy who notices things other people don't. And lately he'd started noticing me. It began with glances. Quick, knowing looks when Sophie and I were in the same room. Then came the smirks, the raised eyebrows, the offhand comments that cut a little too close. "Everything okay, Adrian?" he'd say, voice laced with suspicion. One night after a family dinner, he cornered me on the porch. "You've been acting strange since the wedding," he said. I forced a laugh. "Just work stress." He took a slow sip of his drink. Funny. Sophie's been strange too." My pulse spiked. He leaned in. "Whatever you're hiding, I'll find out. James deserves better than betrayal." The word hit like a slap. He walked off, leaving me frozen, breath shallow. That night I lay awake knowing something had shifted. The guilt wasn't just mine anymore. Someone else could feel it in the air. And if Victor kept digging, the truth wasn't going to stay buried for long. Guilt doesn't fade, it settles. It becomes part of you. Weeks passed and Sophie's pregnancy began to show. Her glow looked real, but I could see the fear buried behind her smile. James was over the moon, painting the nursery blue, humming as he worked, bragging to everyone that his wife was expecting. My best friend was living his dream, and I was living my nightmare. Every visit to their home felt like walking through glass. Their photos hung everywhere, framed moments of happiness I had no right to exist in. James would slap my back, hand me a beer, and talk about baby names. "If it's a boy, we're thinking Noah," he said once, smiling wide. My chest tightened. I almost told him right then, but I didn't. Sophie and I barely spoke. When we did, it was short, sharp, always in whispers. One night after dinner, she cornered me in the kitchen while James was outside taking a call. "We can't keep living like this," she said, pretending nothing happened. I swallowed hard. "We don't have a choice." She looked down, her hands resting protectively on her stomach. "What if it's yours, Adrian? How do we pretend then?" Her words shattered what little peace I had left. Every time I saw her, I saw the possibility of my own child growing inside her. Every time I saw James, I saw the man I'd betrayed, still smiling, still blind. I told myself silence was mercy. But the truth? Silence was just another form of cowardice. And I was running out of places to hide. It all came crashing down at another family gathering, a dinner to celebrate Sophie entering her third trimester. The house was full of laughter and clinking glasses, the smell of roasted meat and perfume blending in the air. But all I could feel was pressure. Victor was there too, sitting across the table, his eyes sharp as ever. He didn't look at James or Sophie. He looked at me. Every time I tried to avoid it, his gaze found me again. Steady, dissecting, dangerous. When dinner ended, he followed me outside. "Enough games," he said, voice low. "You think no one sees it? The guilt, the looks. You're hiding something, Adrian?" I tried to brush it off. "You're imagining things," he smirked, taking a step closer. "Then why does Sophie look like she's about to shatter every time you're in the same room?" My throat went dry. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. He chuckled, shaking his head. "You better hope I'm wrong, because if I'm not, I'll tell him myself." He walked back inside, leaving me in the dark with my heart pounding out of rhythm. For the first time, I realized the secret wasn't safe anymore. The lie had stretched too far, too long. Victor wasn't bluffing, and deep down, I knew he'd be the one to pull the trigger. Inside, I could hear James's laughter through the window. Sophie's soft voice joined his, and I stood there, staring into the night, knowing it was only a matter of time before everything came crashing down. The house was filled with light and love, but I could already smell the smoke from the fire I'd started. It happened faster than I could have imagined. A week later, James hosted another family dinner. It was supposed to be simple, celebrating Sophie's final trimester, one last get-together before the baby arrived. Everyone showed up cheerful, everyone except Victor. He looked ready for war. Halfway through dinner, he stood, glass in hand, eyes glinting under the chandelier. "You know what I love about family?" he said loudly. "Loyalty. But what happens when loyalty turns into betrayal?" The table fell silent. My fork froze midair. Sophie's hand trembled around her glass. James frowned. "Victor, what are you talking about?" Victor's gaze locked on me. "Why don't you ask your best friend?" My stomach dropped. Sophie whispered, "Victor, please don't." But it was too late. James turned toward me, confusion twisting into anger. "What's he talking about, Adrian?" I couldn't speak. My silence said it all. Victor slammed his glass down. "He slept with your wife. The night before the wedding." The words hit the room like an explosion. Plates clattered, people gasped, and Sophie broke into sobs. James stood frozen for a moment, then his face changed. The betrayal hit him all at once. He lunged across the table, grabbed me by the collar, and punched me so hard the room blurred. "You were my brother," he shouted, tears in his voice. "My brother!" Sophie cried out, trying to pull him back, but he wasn't listening. "How long, Adrian? Tell me how long." I spat blood, choking on the truth. "It was one night," I said. "The night before the wedding." He went still. Then quieter, deadlier, he asked, "And the baby?" Sophie's sobs filled the silence. "I don't know," she whispered. That broke him completely. He staggered back, face pale, and walked out the door. And just like that, everything ended. The next few days were a blur of pain and silence. James disappeared. He stopped answering calls. His parents wouldn't speak to me. Sophie stayed at her parents' house, too ashamed to be seen. I became a ghost in my own life, avoiding everyone, drowning in memories I couldn't erase. When I finally saw James again, it was at his apartment. He looked hollow, eyes sunken, a shell of the man I once knew. He didn't yell this time, didn't throw punches. He just stared at me and said, "Why?" I didn't have an answer that made sense. "It was a mistake," I whispered. He shook his head. "A mistake is forgetting a birthday. You destroyed everything I had." Tears burned my eyes. "I never meant to hurt you." "You didn't just hurt me," he said. "You killed the only friendship I ever trusted." He turned away, voice breaking. "She's moving out. I don't even know if that baby's mine, and I don't care anymore. You both took something from me I can't get back." I wanted to speak, not to explain, but there was nothing left to say. He closed the door quietly, and that sound, soft and final, hurt more than any punch ever could. That night, I sat in my car for hours, staring at the steering wheel, and for the first time, I said it out loud. I ruined him. I ruined everything, because some betrayals don't end with forgiveness. They end with silence. Months passed, but the guilt never left. It clung to me like smoke that wouldn't wash off. James never reached out again. Sophie gave birth to a baby boy, a beautiful child I couldn't bear to look at for more than a second. When I saw him once, by accident, those eyes stared up at me, gray, familiar, haunting, and I realized the truth didn't even matter anymore. Whether the baby was his or mine, the damage was already done. I tried to rebuild my life, but every friendship felt fake. Every mirror showed a man I didn't recognize. I kept replaying that night over and over, wondering what would have happened if I just walked away. But I didn't, and now every quiet moment feels like punishment. People think betrayal is about passion or temptation. It's not. It's about weakness. It's about one selfish choice that rewrites every good thing you've ever done. Sometimes I drive past their old house, the lights are off, the garden overgrown. I imagine what could have been if I just kept my promise, if I'd just been the friend James thought I was. Now I'm left with silence, with sleepless nights, and a lesson carved into my soul. You can cheat, you can lie, you can hide, but the truth always outlives the lie. And in the end, no matter how deep you bury it, regret always finds a way to dig itself back up.
Wow. What a story. One night, one decision, and a lifetime of regret. Adrian thought he was protecting his best friend by keeping quiet, but sometimes silence can do more damage than the truth ever could. This story reminds us that betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the people who swore they'd never hurt us. But let me ask you this. If you were in Adrian's shoes, would you have confessed to your best friend before the wedding, or carried the secret to the grave? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, Here on Lies and Regrets, every story is a reminder that the truth may hurt for a moment, but lies can haunt you forever. If you found this story powerful, hit subscribe and join our growing community, where we turn heartbreak into lessons and pain into strength. Until next time, take care of your heart and never forget, betrayal always leaves a scar.